Hello, Pokebros. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I will be taking a little break from my Galar anime series to make this video. This video, as the title says, is the teams that I plan on giving Ash in my rewritten universe. However, since I want my rewrite to be original, I'm not using any Pokemon Ash has used before. However, evolving Pokemon doesn't count, so I wouldn't be allowed to use Bulbasaur, but Venusaur is on the table. But now that I've gotten that intro stuff out of the way, let's hop in. First up is Ash's Kanto Team. This team is obviously one of Ash's most beloved, but I hope you guys like my version. Obviously, we have Pikachu, and for the Kanto region, he's very similar to the original anime. The first new Pokemon I see Ash catching is Beedrill. However, he wouldn't stay on the team for the entire journey, as he would get replaced later, similar to Butterfree. However, I would have Ash be able to call him back to battle. In my rewrite, Beedrill will be a smart battler who rarely loses and would carry Ash's team early on. The first main team member I think Ash would catch is Poliwrath. I could see Ash catching a Poliwag after losing to Brock to help him in the rematch. However, I think Poliwrath's story would be that of him going up from a goofy and playful Poliwag in Poliwhirl to a strong and serious battler as a Poliwrath. Now, for Ash's fire type of the region, I have Arcanine. I chose Arcanine because I feel like of the fire types in Kanto, I can give him the best story. My idea for Arcanine is that when in Celadon City, Ash would help take down the Team Rocket hideout, and there he would capture Arcanine. However, Arcanine would have serious trust issues, making him hard to work with due to his abuse from Team Rocket. But Ash would work with him and bond with him, and eventually he would become one of Ash's strongest Pokemon. Following up a really serious Pokemon, we have a more goofy one in Exeggutor. I picked Exeggutor for two reasons. The first is that his design is funny and is a naturally goofy Pokemon, which I think works well for Ash. And for the second reason, his psychic powers could be interesting for an inexperienced Ash to deal with. In my story, Exeggutor is the comic relief mon of the team. The next mon I see Ash getting is Sandslash. I think Sandslash is a perfect Ash mon, and I can't believe he didn't catch one originally. I see Sandslash being a speedy Pokemon who loves to dig when he's not battling. However, I do see Sandslash being one of Ash's better Pokemon early, while Poliwag is still coming into his own. The last Pokemon I'm giving Ash is Aerodactyl. Now, this pick may seem weird, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I see Ash catching Aerodactyl in the Fossil episode. He would battle the Aerodactyl, but after defeating it, instead of letting it go back to rest, he would capture it. I do see Aerodactyl being similar to Charizard, where he is very strong, but doesn't really listen to Ash because he feels like he's better than him. His arc with Ash would be learning to trust him and then becoming one of his stronger battlers and actually listening to his commands. But that's with Kanto, so let's move on to Johto. Now for Ash's Johto team. Since Ash's Johto team was so weak originally, I had a good time remaking his team. But the first Pokemon I would have Ash catch is Ledian. Now I know Ledian seems weird, but I think with Ledian's story you'll understand. In my universe, I see Ash catching a weak Ladybug, and Ash would train with him until he evolves, becoming a strong Ledian and an early series carry. The next Pokemon I think Ash would catch is Quagsire. I mean, what else is there to say? Quagsire is quite literally the perfect Ash Pokemon. His goofy personality would contrast greatly with Ledian, who's a serious Pokemon who loves training. Also, Ash always needs a water type on his team. Now for Ash's third Pokemon, I'd give him Espeon. Again, Espeon is our fan favorite pick, but it's for a reason. Espeon is cool and would be interesting to see Ash have. Also, I think Espeon could be similar to Bayleaf in the fact that she is super affectionate towards Ash. Also, I think Ash should have had more psychic types. For Ash's fire type of the region, I'd give him Houndoom. This was a pretty easy choice for me. It was either Macargo or Houndoom for Ash's fire type, and I definitely wasn't picking Macargo, so yeah, Houndoom. But I also think he works pretty well. I could see him being like a feral dog who has anger issues, sort of like Lycanroc, and his main story is gaining control of his anger. The final Pokemon I see Ash catching is Ursaring. I feel like Ursaring would be the powerhouse of the team, but also act as a team mom, making sure everyone else is always safe. And that's all for Johto. Now let's move on. Next up is Ash's Hoen Team. This team is pretty easy to make, as the first Pokemon I'll give Ash is Braylon. Braylon feels like he fits Ash great. He is a battle-obsessed Pokemon just like Ash, so they would work perfectly together. It also makes his gym battle against Roxanne way easier. For Ash's next Pokemon, I'd give him Blaziken. I had two starter options to give Ash and Hoenn, but I decided on Blaziken for a few reasons. First, I think Blaziken could have a cool story of being a scared and weak Torchic that struggles to battle, but then as he evolves, he becomes more confident and powerful. Also, I think he could have a rivalry with Ash's Braylon. For Ash's third Pokemon, I'd give him Sableye. Sableye would be caught on Dewford Island like Corphish. His personality would be that of a thief that is always stealing metal and gems to eat. Also, I think it could be funny seeing Ash having to stop him stealing from people. Next up, we have the comic relief of the team in Whiscash. Whiscash is the one slower, bulkier Pokemon that Ash usually has on his team, like Torkoal, Torterra, and Snorlax. Also, Whiscash is like another perfect comic relief mon. Just look at how goofy he is. For Ash's last Hoenn Pokemon, I'd actually give him Salamence. I know most people say that Ash should have gotten Flygon, but I actually think that Salamence is a better fit. I could see Ash catching him as a Bagon around the fourth gym, and from there he would be obsessed with biting Ash on his head, just like Gibble. Then as he evolves, he would keep his goofy personality, but would lock in when he needs to battle. I see Salamence being a late bloomer, but being one of Ash's strongest on the team. And that's it for Hoenn. Now let's get to Sinnoh. Now we have one of Ash's most beloved teams in his Sinnoh team. This one was very difficult to make, but I think I did a pretty good job. For the first Pokemon Ash would catch, I'd choose Roserade. Roserade doesn't really seem like an Ash Pokemon, but I think it would give her an interesting story of being obsessed with looking pretty in battle. So Ash would get help from Dawn to help Roserade master her battle style, as Dawn is a coordinator, so she knows how to make her Pokemon look pretty. The second Pokemon I think Ash would catch is Gastrodon. Just like on the Hoenn team, Ash needs a bulky Pokemon, and I think Gastrodon fits perfectly. You see him being a Pokemon who loves sleeping and would sometimes fall behind early in battle due to him being asleep. And then he'd wake up and would use his pure power to win. For Ash's next Pokemon, I've got to give him Gallade. But not just any Gallade, a shiny Gallade. Since Ash can't get Infernape, he needs another powerful fighting type. And since Lucario is also off limits, I think Gallade is perfect for the team. I see him having a crazy psychic aura that he struggles to control, similar to Infernape's Blaze. Also, I made him shiny just because I think it'd make him more unique, and in my universe, Ash never got a shiny Pokemon in Johto. For the next Pokemon, I have Togekiss. Of the remaining flying types, I think Togekiss fits the best. She could have a story of being a weak baby Pokemon that dreams of being able to fly, and then Ash helps her train to evolve and learn to fly. Also, I think Togekiss could be a representation of the Johto remakes. For Ash's last Pokemon, I'd give him Magmortar. And I literally mean I have to because he's the only other Sinnoh fire type besides Infernape. But honestly, I think he fits fine because he can have a serious rivalry with Paul's Electivire. And that's it for the Sinnoh team. Now on to Unova. For Ash's Unova team, unlike in the original anime, I will be keeping his team to 6 Pokemon. For the first Pokemon, I have Samura. This is literally the only original Ash Pokemon I kept, and that's for a good reason. I want Ash to have one starter of every type, and I feel like Samura is the water starter that fits Ash the best. Plus, Oshawott never evolved originally, so technically he still fits within the rule set. Also, in my version, Oshawott would still be goofy, but he would have moments where he goes into a serious battle mode, and that would be what he works on with Ash throughout the series. Now, moving on, we have Ash's fire type of the region, and I'd give him Darmanitan. Ash not getting a Darmanitan originally was a crime. It is a perfect Ash Pokemon. He is a fiery fighter who loves battles. Like, what else is there to say? Now that we have the obvious ones out of the way, let's move on to Ash's grass type and Whimsicott. Now, there's maybe a bit of a bias, since Whimsicott is one of my favorite Pokemon, but I think she could fit well. I see her as an air-headed Pokemon who is the comic relief Pokemon once Oshawott evolves. Also, like, Ash doesn't get that many fairy types, so she could be interesting for him to have on his team. For Ash's fifth team member, I'd actually give him Liepard. I know Liepard doesn't really fit Ash, but I could see her being a sassy cat Pokemon who thinks she is stronger than everyone else. I can see her not really listening to Ash at first, as she thinks she knows better than him, but as they bond, she will become one of Ash's strongest. And for Ash's last Pokemon, I feel like Archeops fits best. I feel like his story could be interesting, with him and Ash having to learn to master his defeatist ability. I could see Ash strategically switching him out to keep him healthy and stuff like that. But that's it for Unova. Now on to Kalos. Ash's Kalos team is considered one of his strongest, especially with Greninja as the headliner. But I obviously can't use him, so let's see who I do choose. For Ash's first Kalos Pokemon, I see him catching a Pyroar. Every good Ash team needs a fire type, and of the remaining fire types, Pyroar fits Ash the best. I could see Pyroar being a strong protective Pokemon who is seen as the leader of the team and always keeps everyone else under control. For Ash's next Pokemon, I have to give him Aegislash. I know Aegislash is one of Sawyer's main Pokemon, but I just think its ability could be really cool to see Ash utilize. Switching between attack and defense mode could be a very cool strategy. I also see Aegislash being a sort of robotic Pokemon that doesn't really show emotions besides his love for training. For Ash's third Kalos I'd give him Pangoro. Ash works really well with fighting types, and I feel like Pangoro could fit well as the big bulky powerhouse of the team. I also see him having a bit of a rivalry with Pyroar, as they both see themselves as a leader, but Pyroar is the only one that actually gets listened to by Ash's team. Now for Ash's grass type of the region, I have Trevenant. I know it's a type overlap with Aegislash, but Trevenant is just so cool and works so well with Ash. Like, you can't tell me that a ghost grass type wouldn't be cool to see with Ash. I see Trevenant being a scaredy cat as a phantom and really struggling in battle because of it. However, as he trains with Ash, he would begin to overcome his fears, then evolving into a powerful Trevenant. And for Ash's final mon, in his water type of region, I'd give him Clawitzer. I think Clawitzer fits sorta well as a slower, bulkier Pokemon on Ash's team. Despite that, I think his battle style could be interesting as he can use Aqua Jet to maneuver the battlefield. I really just chose him as I felt like of the water types, he fit the best. And that's it for Kalos. Let's move on to Alola. Next up, we have Ash's champion team. This team I didn't like that much originally. It wasn't because the Pokemon were bad, I just don't really like the idea of Ash getting legendary Pokemon. But now, with that stuff out of the way, let's get into Ash's first Pokemon, which I see being Toucannon. For the first time, I can finally give Ash to Regional Bird, and I think it's one that works great. Toucannon would be a wise mentor type Pokemon to the rest of the team. It would always help teach Ash's Pokemon other moves when they need to, and be one of Ash's most reliable Pokemon early on. For the next Pokemon, I chose Araquanid. I think Araquanid fits really well as an Ash Pokemon. Similar to Ledian, I see Araquanid starting as a weak Dewpider who struggles to battle, but as he trains with Ash and gains strength, he would eventually evolve, becoming a strong battler. I see Araquanid being super friendly and always trying to make new friends, even with the bad guys sometimes, which could lead him to getting into trouble. Also, I can see him having a cool rivalry with Guzma's Golisopod. Now for the fire type of the region, I'd give Ash Salazzle. I see Salazzle being a sassy Pokemon. I think she's the best, and is often rude to other people in Pokemon. However, she is super nice to Ash, as he took her in as a Salandit and helped her reach her true potential. And I know Salazzle is kind of like girly for Ash, but it's the best fire type for him in Alola besides Incineroar, who obviously I can't give him. For Ash's fourth Alolamon, I have to give him Passimian. I know Passimian is on almost every list, but he fits Ash well, and there is literally a perfect episode that already exists for Ash to catch him. Also, Ash having a hyperactive fighting monkey would be funny to see. And for Ash's final Alola capture, I actually see him catching a Drampa. I think Drampa rounds out the team really well as a more laid back and relaxed Pokemon who loves to get rest. However, when he needs to battle, he can be really strong. I think this is a cool replacement for Ash's champion team. And that's it for Alola, now on to Galar. Now Galar is the last team, and you may be wondering, how am I going to make it? But since Ash never really had a Galar team originally. And to answer your question, I won't be allowed to use any Pokemon from Ash's team in my Galar series. Even though that series hasn't ended, I already know what Ash's team will be. But that out of the way, let's start. So for Ash's first Galarmon, I'd give him Rillaboom. I see Rillaboom being a more relaxed Pokemon who is really interested into drumming and loves to battle to a beat. That could be interesting to see Ash adapt to and train with. For Ash's next Pokemon, I have his fire type of the region in Scorch. I like giving Ash bug types, and a fire bug type is even cooler. I think Scorch would love food, sometimes being distracted by it in the middle of battle. Now on to Ash's third Mon, and his water type for the region, and I'd give him Cramorant. I see Cramorant as the comic relief of the team. I feel like he could have a funny gag where he always eats Pikachu, causing him to get shocked, just like that one scene from Sword and Shield. Next up for Ash's team is Copperajah. I think Copperajah fits great as the bulky, slow Pokemon of the team. Also, I think it'd be cool to see Ash have an elephant Pokemon. Plus, when he battles Rose, they can have a Copperajah versus Copperajah battle. And for Ash's last Pokemon in Galar, I'd give him Dragapult. Dragapult is quite literally one of the coolest Pokemon in Galar, so I just needed to give Ash one. Also, I can see him being a tricky prankster who's always sneaking around and stealing. Also, I see him being sort of the powerhouse of the team. And that's all the teams for today. What did you think? Did you love my selections or did you hate them? Comment your favorite team and comment a change you would make or what your ideal Ash teams would be. But that's all for today, Pokebros. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.